tell me if I'm missing something here, because you're much more embedded in this and closer to it than I will ever be. I'm reading online people freaking out that DOGE is looking at and making cuts regarding Social Security. That's the headline. That's the panic headline, DOGE cutting Social Security. But if you go past the headline where everybody's going, oh my God, now they're cutting Social Security. My take on that is what they're doing is cutting waste, fraud, and abuse from Social Security, which in fact gives greater life to Social Security, which gives greater security to Social Security recipients, where
Correct.
it looks to be headed for insolvency. This lengthens the time that you can project Social Security to be alive without having to do some kind of overhaul of it. But, I mean, the headlines are saying they're doing cuts in Social Security when, in fact, they're streamlining Social Security, getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse, so the money that's in Social Security goes further, protects more recipients, and gives it a longer life. Am I missing something here?
You are spot on. Imagine if we had a food pantry, Dr. Phil, in a rural part of my home state of Florida, and every day 100 people lined up to get food. And some people at the end of the line weren't going to get any, even though they were deserving it. But it turns out 10% of the people in the line were committing fraud. They were lying about their income status to have access to the food pantry. The right thing to do for all of the people who are deserving, who are hungry, who need that food and drink, would be to kick out the people who are cheating the system and defrauding the food pantry. It's no different with Social Security. If you want to protect those on Social Security, to protect the solvency of that program, that our hard workers who paid into it for decades can take the money out after they retire, you've got to kick the people off who are committing fraud. That's everything that DOGE is doing. That's all that DOGE is doing. And the president has made it clear. No one who has a legitimate claim to Social Security or Medicare or Medicaid will be removed. But if you are lying, if you're an illegal, if you're committing fraud, you're out, and DOGE will see to it.
I've seen some of the headlines. We just looked at one that said they're talking about cutting 50% of the workforce. Is Social Security workforce bloated? Are there people there that aren't necessary, aren't contributing to administering Social Security benefits?
Absolutely. And at a time now where you have AI call centers, so instead of waiting on the phone for 90 minutes to talk to a Social Security representative about your benefits, your money that you paid into the system over decades, you can now have someone at an AI call center or someone more senior pick up that call, and you can get the resolution right away. There has to be reorganization. Clearly, Social Security is not efficient with its current workload because there have been so many stragglers who have been hiding under their Zoom cubicles, their virtual cubicles for years now, not pulling their weight, not doing their work, and holding back what would otherwise be an efficient system. It's not personal. There is no constitutional right to a federal job. If you're not contributing, you're taking away, and it's time to go.
Yeah, if that can be streamlined and you can cut overhead, then it seems to me that when you cut overhead and you operate more efficiently, then you're just streamlining and benefits go further. It's a more efficient organization. So I've looked at a number of charities that I had considered donating to over the last 30 or 40 years. And some of them have 10% overhead. Some of them have 80% overhead. And if you give $1 and 80 cents of the dollar goes to administration and overhead, and maybe 20 cents out of every dollar gets to a recipient, that's not a great place to put money. $36 trillion. That is the U.S. debt, and it gets deeper and deeper by the day. Our debt has never been higher, nor have the stakes. The government is looking to slash the federal budget by $2 trillion, and no one knows what that will mean for your job, savings, and future. I've seen a lot in my time, and there's one thing I know for sure. You need to prepare before it's too late. I trust Preserve Gold to help protect my wealth, and I strongly urge you to do the same. They are the only precious metals firm I trust and recommend to my family, friends, and audience, and they have a special offer just for you. Text Dr. Phil to 50505 to get your free precious metals guide from Preserve Gold. With gold prices recently breaking records and analysts predicting this trend to continue throughout 2025, you cannot afford to wait. As a bonus, you can get up to $15,000 with a qualified purchase from Preserve Gold. So don't wait. Text Dr. Phil to 50505 today. If we can streamline some of these federal programs where it's not all being absorbed with bureaucracy and more of the money is getting to the people that need it, that are entitled to it. I've seen so many of these entitlement programs not going to people that are entitled to the benefits, but are going to people who get either the money or the cards or the goods, and they turn around and sell them. Right. Those people aren't entitled to those benefits. They're taking them and selling them or returning them to stores or doing whatever. The creativity of people ripping off the government is astounding. If those people would use that creativity working, they would do great.
That's exactly right. They could put those talents to much better use. And to your point is, if you're taking government benefits, whether it's SNAP or whatever, a food stamp card, for example, and you're using that and trying to collect 70, 80 cents on the dollar to sell it off to buy drugs or to buy a new TV, you are defrauding a government program, which means you're defrauding the taxpayer. That is fraud. It has to go. And so that's what DOGE is going to do. And to your point earlier on Social Security, there are 60,000 Social Security workers working at the administration. Why? You're sending out checks to people, oftentimes, very simply, if it's direct deposit in many cases. So why do you need all that overhead? Why not save that money to ensure that these benefits are secure for decades to come?
I think that they're using this fear-mongering, these fear tactics to get people, oh my God, they're going in and cutting Social Security. No, what they're doing is streamlining the program so it lasts longer. So you have recipients that are more secure for a longer period of time. I hate that they're fear-mongering because that's not compassionate. They're not protecting anybody by doing that. And it just seems to me they're masquerading as protecting Social Security recipients when in fact they're keeping them in danger. They're keeping them in jeopardy of those benefits drying up sooner, where they could be securing them more by having an efficient, lean, mean operation that stretches those benefits out. And I just really hope people will look past the headline, past the initial anxiety, and find out, wait a minute, they're going in and cleaning this up. So those of us that are truly entitled to the benefits are more secure in getting them going forward. And I really hope people pay attention to that and don't just buy off on the clickbait headline, which people are using to scare people away from this. Now, let me ask you this. The original idea that I understood from DOGE was, look, we've got a $37 trillion deficit, and we're going $2 trillion a year into debt with overspending. And the idea that I understood in the beginning with DOGE is that, all right, we're going to go in and cut this, so we stop that. Was that the original plan?
Yeah, I think the original plan was to get to a better place of fiscal responsibility. This debt is completely out of control. Under Biden, it went from 30 trillion to 36 trillion. Lord knows how it was actually spent. I mean, think about it. We're spending as a government 50% more per year than we were not 20 years ago, not 10 years ago, 5 years ago. Our budget has gone up by 50%. Ask the average American if their government is doing a 50% better job. The answer is no. You don't go to a steakhouse, pay 50% more, and have an inferior quality steak. And that's exactly what we've been dealt. So that's unacceptable. I think DOGE's job was twofold, was to pull back on excessive government spending, but also to streamline the system, because taxpayers and Social Security recipients and businesses and workers, deserve a government that is simple, straightforward, and efficient. And so those two go hand in glove. But yes, debt sustainability and government efficiency, I see those as the two priorities of DOGE.
All right, if they're spending $2 trillion more a year than they're bringing in,
yeah,
and they cut $2 trillion, then that means they would operate for a year at a net zero. They would not go into debt. They would actually cover their bills for the year. So why give away $400 billion to people, which means now you are back in debt? You're giving away $400 billion you don't have to give away.
So it's an interesting way to frame it. And I think it's a fair question. The way I would say it, Dr. Phil, is this. We're not giving it away. We are giving it back. This was the taxpayer money a year ago or 2 years ago. The average taxpayer will give Washington $270,000 of income tax over their lifetime. And we're talking about sending back just 2% of that. The reason why is you save the money, you give it back for really two main reasons. You have to restore trust in government. Let's stop taking the taxpayer for granted. For 50 years, people send money to Washington year after year. There's nothing to show for it here in America, but all these boondoggles in foreign countries. If it means taking a slight percentage of that and sending it back so we can increase the trust, confidence, and accountability between the taxpayer and our government, that's worthwhile. The second thing is when you go to Walmart and you buy something and you weren't satisfied and they owe you a refund, their excuse cannot be, Dr. Phil, well, Walmart has $5 billion of debt on our balance sheet. We can't give you a refund until we've paid off the debt. They're two separate transactions. Do you want to give Americans their hard-earned money back as a one-time rebate? Essentially, by the way, for every $5 we save, we're just giving back $1. Do you want to give that $1 of savings to the taxpayer, or do you want to send it to China, who holds our debt? That's the choice you really have to make. We're saying 80% of it goes down to narrowing the deficit and paying the debt. And the other 20, the very small minority of it, goes as a restitution payment to the taxpayer. I think we'll end up saving more by having the taxpayer on board by contributing and reporting waste, fraud, and abuse, which means this very thing may pay for itself. Think of it this way. If we were to save $2 trillion no matter what, but we were to save $2.4 trillion because the taxpayer was involved precisely because they were expecting a DOGE dividend check, then it would pay for itself right off the bat. And so I would compare those two worlds and say very simply, we're not giving them money, we're giving them back their money that they had just sent to Washington.
Do you think it will actually incentivize them? It will deputize them to open their eyes and find waste, fraud, and abuse that you couldn't find if you didn't have millions of eyes looking for it, reporting it, calling it in, letting people know what's going on? Do you think deputizing them will actually make the DOGE system more effective?
I do. And there's a really simple reason behind it. We interact with our federal government every single day. I did growing up. After hurricanes in Florida, FEMA would come around and waste government money on all sorts of crap. I took my grandfather, a World War II vet, to the VA frequently for checkups, and nurses and doctors would complain about the newest machines coming in, even though machines had already been ordered 18 months or 2 years prior. And again, another example of waste and abuse. And so there are certain things, yes, that the AI and Elon and his engineers drinking Red Bull and eating Chick-fil-A will be able to find from the top down. But there are certain things that only the taxpayer with her own eyes can see on the ground. And now when you tell them, hey, there's a check with your name on it, and how big that check is depends on how much you chip in. If you see something, say something, then absolutely, I think that's a part of it. And there's a financial incentive. There's nothing like a financial incentive to get people motivated. Think about the fact that we are speaking right now. I'm honored, but I'll tell you, we're speaking in large part because the DOGE dividend is such a viral phenomenon. You're getting thousands of accounts on TikTok and Instagram posting about this every single day. The fact that we are even talking about a wonky economic proposal like a tax refund check called the DOGE dividend, I think speaks to the resonance of the country. They want to get behind something and they want to be a part of this government efficiency movement.
Is there a reporting system? Is there a 911 number that people can call and report waste, fraud, and abuse that they see?
Yes, there is. It's very simple. The Doge account on X, you can direct message that from even a private or an anonymous account, and you can report that abuse. And so we're going to make it as simple as possible. You don't have to show up and speak to the inspector general and file a 39-page report. Send a quick direct message to the Doge account. Elon has said that if you suspect waste, fraud, and abuse, that will get processed. And let's see what we can save in the near term.
How many of those have yielded something that the Doge team didn't already know, didn't already see? Has it yielded some good result?
My understanding is yes. I haven't seen any messages personally, but I think when you take the DOGE dividend to the next level and you enact it into law and you say there's a check with your name on it, so long as you and your fellow Americans call out wasteful government spending, we are going to see a flood of requests in. Not all of them are going to be legit. Some of them are going to be spam. Some are going to be a misread of what the government program intends to do. But if even 1 in 20 lead to a credible lead, then we're on to something. We'll save even more than we otherwise would, and that would pay for the DOGE dividend itself.